All right, so this should finalize our testing for the chain. My square chain, that should be. We're gonna put it up against a C83, a brand new C83 chain. So that's what I'm getting ready to do here. I'm gonna spin up a new chain, and we're gonna compare it to my fastest hand filed square chain. And well, this is basically going to tell us if all my efforts on this square chain was worth it or not. I mean, if I can't outrun the C83, then what's the point of continuing down that path? So that's what we're going to do. I got to spin up a chain. First thing I do is start counting. I need 60 drivers off of this thing. I'm doing it on a 16-inch bar, 60 driver setup. So I got to count off 60 drivers here. All right, she's on, all done up. So, you ready? We're gonna throw this on the saw and see how she does and compare it to my square, maybe my fastest square that I've done so far. So, let's see how she does. Before we move on, I'm going to go ahead and refuel it, and we're going to throw some nitro in it. Let's see if it runs differently with the nitro. You got to have them running pretty fat in order to put the nitro in it, and I'm right on the edge there of whether or not it'll work. So I'm curious. I'm going to find out. Last time I did this, I blew the carburetor apart. So I have enough time that if I blow the carburetor apart, I can get another one. Let's go ahead and get her done. Let's run it with some nitro. Definitely smell the nitro. She really leans the saw out. Could you tell? It's a lot leaner now than what it was. That's why you got to make sure you get enough fuel going. And I don't know. I couldn't tell the difference. So I don't know if I got enough fuel going to it to where the nitro is going to make a difference. That's pretty much as rich as I can get the saw to go right now. So yeah, it worked before I ported it. But after I ported it, I'm not 100% certain yet. That's what this test is about. See if it actually works we might be better off just sticking with the methanol until I do a little more work to the saw. You know what I mean? But let me get her purged here real quick and we'll see. Some of you might be wondering why we don't worry so much about the carburetor and the air filter mods on this saw. I've been running it and I've said, you know, we could always put the velocity stack and everything on it. You know what I mean? And I just haven't. So, what do you think the reason is? I'll explain it here. So, methanol, nitro, all that stuff, all has to do with like molecules and stuff like that. Gasoline, what is it? It's, I forget the number. Is it 14 parts air for 1 part of gas? I think the number is, it's something like that. Actually, that might be the methanol. I can't remember. But there's so many parts of air for every 1 part of fuel whenever you go gas. When you go to methanol, well, let's just say 14. Let's just say 14 parts of air for every 1 part of fuel when you're running gas. And in order to get more fuel, you need more air for it to burn properly, right? That's gas. When you go methanol though, it's different. You need more like half that, say, or twice that actually, twice that in fuel. So let's say you got 14 parts of air, you need like 7 parts of fuel in order for it to work. So you're getting more fuel, but you don't necessarily need more air because the fuel itself is carrying molecules of oxygen along with it. That's why when you start running into issues, the saw will have a tendency to try to run away on you. And that's because it's carrying oxygen with it. It doesn't need oxygen, an outside oxygen source to really burn. It'll burn without it, or without that extra air or whatever. And it's like, it's almost like an oxygenator or some sort, I guess. And whenever I put the nitropropane to it, that's basically doing more. It's adding even more oxygen to the system. So I don't need as much oxygen from, you know, available through the carburetor because I'm sending it through on the fuel. And nitropropane or nitromethane, everybody's heard about nitromethane, same deal, except that stuff is really nasty. It's literally, it's like for every 1 part of air, you can send 1 part or is it 1 part air and I think it's 1.7 parts air for every 1 part of fuel. So think about that. It's almost equal, almost an equal amount of air as fuel. So think about how much air you're sucking through there and trying to shove as much fuel through there as you are air. It's a crazy amount of fuel when you go to nitromethane. That stuff is pretty nasty stuff. And that's why you see so much performance increases coming from that stuff. And it carries its oxygen. It carries a lot of the oxygen it needs with it. You just got to get it in there. You know what I mean? It's just getting a carburetor or something set up that'll feed that, you know? But enough rambling here, and we're going to go ahead and do some side-by-sides. We're going to compare the out-of-the-box C83 chain to the hand square-filed chain that we did in the last video. And then we're going to check the nitropropane because additive. That was with the C83 chain. So we'll compare the 2 chains, see which one's faster, but then we're going to see if the nitro additive added anything more now that the salt is ported, because it may not have. I may not be getting enough fuel through the system to add the power. And I've got the carburetor running as rich as I can right now. It would require more modifications for me to get more fuel. If you noticed, once I added that nitropropane, the saw went lean on me, which, you know, a lean tune on this fuel doesn't work. It needs to be on the richer side to really produce the power. So let's see what happens. And I think that'll be it. All right, so let's see what happens. the tests are in, and well, I kind of screwed up. So, I screwed up, but I didn't. But the test is pretty accurate. I screwed up, I think, because I tuned off. My tune was off on one of the tests. Remember, we kept saying, "Hey, when it needs more fuel, needs more fuel." Well, during this process of editing and timing my cuts through the edit, I realized that I tuned past the point of optimal performance. I was slowing the saw down. So, in a way, the test is not accurate because I was, making the saw run slower. But I can tell you for certain this, my square hand file is faster. I could actually tell instantly because of the way it felt in the wood. So my square hand file, it was doing everything by itself. I was not doing anything. Everything about it was all self-feed. There was really nothing from me except guide the saw through the cut. The C83 though, I was kind of helping it along a little bit, not a whole lot, but I was helping it along to help make it perform at its optimal speed. So I kind of screwed up this whole test. I just couldn't help myself, I guess. But yeah, these results are not accurate, but they are because I do know that my square hand file is faster. If I would get into a smaller piece of wood, so like me saying before that this saw would perform way better on a smaller wood, that's where this square is really going to shine whenever I have that torque available to push it even push through the cut or push harder. If you've seen me do test cut videos before, anytime I let something self-feed versus me pushing it through the cut, there is a substantial difference in cut speed, and we're going to see the same result out of this square chain as any other video I've done. It's just what you saw there was pretty much 100% self-fed, and I did not help the saw through the cut at all with that square chain, where I was helping the C83 along a little bit there. So you can blame me for that one. I kind of skewed those results. And as far as the Nitro, I can confirm that it does not help the saw now that it is ported. I'm not getting enough fuel delivered to the system for the Nitro to help. So pretty much that's the end of Nitro until we can figure out something else down the road or something. We may never go back to it. It might be one of those things that works better for some builds and not others, So for this particular build, the nitropropane additive did not help at all. It actually caused me to lose because I can't get enough fuel. So for this particular build here, in its current form, the nitro additive does not help. It actually took away, and hey, it is what it is. So that's the big results. Alrighty, hey, we'll catch you in the next one. Later.